Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Seth, with SethPerler.com, and today we are going to talk about dyscalculia, which is a math disability. I'm so excited about this. We have today Adrianne Meldrum, who is somebody who I've known for a long time. She's one of my favorite math nerds in the world, and Scanlon, who I don't know. But they are working together on some projects. They'll be having like a Dyscalculia webinar coming up in April. And Adrianne and I have known each other for years and have done a lot of work in support of each other's missions, personal missions and stuff like that. So I'm super stoked for this. So parents and teachers, this is for you parents and teachers. If you are concerned about any kids who struggle with math, I want you to at least listen to the beginning of this, see if you want to listen to the rest of this, if dyscalculia might be something that that you want to take a look at. So let's do a quick intro. Adrianne, tell everybody about you and what you do.
Yeah, hey, I'm Adrianne. I'm the owner of Math for Middles, and I've been tutoring kids in math for a long time, since about 2006. And I was always frustrated by, there was always this certain percentage of my students that we would learn something, they would forget it, they'd come back and it's gone, or they'd go to school, couldn't get it out on a test, even though I knew they knew the material. So I was really frustrated by that. I deep dove into research and started learning about multisensory math and dyscalculia and dyslexia and all of those types of issues, ADHD as well, and how they affect math, and it totally evolved my teaching. And now those are not issues for my students because I teach the way their brain is wired. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. And Kara?
Well, I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 5, and I actually got diagnosed with ADHD about 2 or 3 years ago. It was, always there, but I didn't need the extended time, so it wasn't a necessity for my parents to get that diagnosis. And I was always playing sports hardcore, so I was kind of my medicine at the time. And so because of that, I have empathy for my students, truly understanding how difficult it is to learn. For me, it was spelling, reading, and writing. So the math part wasn't really an issue for me. So that's where I can teach it, but I can be empathetic when a student goes, I don't get it. And I'm like,
but you work with math nowadays? You work with kids with math nowadays?
Yeah, I top out at Calc 3. That's when my brain is like, I just don't know how to make this multisensory enough to engage. Even though Calc 3 can be very multisensory, it's just, that's where I top out.
Cool. And we're going to talk about dyscalculia. Does the audience need to know what multisensory math is at this point?
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to kind of segue into it.
All right, so let me frame my question. What is multisensory math, and why should a parent or teacher even care that this concept exists?
Yeah, so multisensory math is all about the sensory input that we're putting in, and we start with kinesthetic. We're touching things, we're manipulating objects, we're building things with our hands, models. Legos are a plentiful resource for math. So at its most basic. Then we move to representational, which think of just pictures, drawings, real simple drawings too. They don't have to be really detailed. And then we move to the abstract. And all of the instruction you experienced, Seth, and we experienced in school was all abstract. It's all numbers, it's procedural, it's memorization. And if that is how your kid's being taught right now in school, which it's really likely, that's how my students are being taught too, it's going to be hard for them to really master those math skills. And when we work with kids online, their first experience, and we jump right in with that multisensory, after about 10 minutes, they say, whoa, no one's ever taught me that way before. And it starts to make sense, and they start changing that belief. I'm not a math person to, hey, I kind of like math, to I'm a math person, I can do this work. And it's really exciting, and the progression that they make is relatively fast. We just did an assessment with a student who started out at like a 3rd grade level, and in just 9 months, he's almost up to grade level, which we are just
And how old was he?
He is 14.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making a lot of progress. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's exciting. His mom was telling me during the assessment, she was floored too. Like, before, he would fret and worry and just spend all this time spinning his wheels, but she was watching him. He's just clicking confidently, and he knows the answers. He knows how to do all the stuff, even though all the problems were abstract, like you would see at school. he was supported with that multisensory approach. So he knows what to do and how it ties to the abstract.
And a total mindset shift too, just about his identity related to math.
Totally.
Yeah. That's so important because like you said, so often they think they have that limited belief, that fixed mindset. If Carol Dweck would say, I'm just not good at math. I'm just not a math person.
Right.
And that's really sad to see, because I talk about, so parents and teachers that are watching, when I'm dealing with kids with math who struggle a lot, what I talk a lot about is what I call bucket theory. So you have this bucket, we're trying to fill this bucket with math information, but these kids have holes in the bucket. So as we're trying to teach them in math, it's very sequential and gets harder and harder as the school year goes by or as years go by. So they have all these holes, and as they get into more complex math that they would normally be able to do if the holes were filled, it appears that they were not capable. But if we can figure out, would that be a good metaphor for?
Absolutely. Perfect metaphor.
I was going to say, that's what I see every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that student that we were describing, we were just looking at his graph last night, and exactly, we're seeing holes filled. He's like maxed out on so many things that matter on the foundational end, and I'm just so excited about his progress.
Cool. So before we define dyscalculia, I want to just get people who are watching really engaged and let them make sure if they're in the right place. And so what I'm going to ask you before I ask you for a formal definition is I'm going to ask you, what do parents and teachers who are working with a kid with dyscalculia hear them say? So what would a parent say if their if they should be concerned? What are they saying to you? And in your mind, you're going, oh yeah, their kid has dyscalculia. What do they say?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Well, even before what they say, it can be just hardcore avoidance behavior.
Or
like, no, I just want to play basketball a little bit longer. Or no, I'll finish my English homework first. And you're
so
like,
avoiding math, just like this rejection of math. This.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say they're frustrated because their kid can't seem to remember math facts. And they're like, gosh, they're 8th graders and they can't even do, 8 times 7 or something like that. And I'm frustrated because we spend all this time like practicing, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even stick. And so they're frustrated. And then they also talk a lot about, it's like going on 50 First Dates. You know the movie where she keeps forgetting every day that she gets up? It's like that. I put it into my kid. We got it. And they wake up, it's gone. And so we are kind of like, yeah, we've heard that before. So things like that.
So they're working with their kid. They know their kid gets the concept.
Yeah.
They see it. They've done several problems. I see this in my practice with some of my kids too. The ones and then they go to school the next day. They have their test. You don't even it looks like they've even mastered it. They really get it. And the next day it's gone. It just has vanished. Like the hole in the buckets are so big, like there's no bottom in it even or something. It's just gone.
I have a college student who he's now taken, I think he took Algebra 2 3 times, pre-calc 4 times. He's on Calc 1 for the 3rd time. And he's finally like, I'm not going to study for 50 hours for this calc final. And he's like, it feels really weird. But I actually know how to study efficiently, and I understand the concepts already, so I don't need to bunker down and just do this crazy stuff because I actually already know it. And it wasn't teaching him everything from the ground up. It was just there were certain holes, and doing all logic steps. That's all he needed was just, oh, that's why you go from there to there. Which the teacher just goes, boop, and there's no this is what you actually need to go from here to here.
Yeah. I think another thing too that parents might not be aware that this is happening, but I'm wearing a shirt that has the tally mark of 5 on it. And there's a phrase that we use a lot to describe, does the kid understand the 5-ness of 5? I seriously have had 9th graders before where they saw a dice pattern of 5 and she did not know that was 5. She had to count 1 by 1. That's a huge red flag. And so she, even though she had just kept getting passed on, here she is, she's in algebra, she can't tell time, she can't read the calendar, she's counting on her fingers. It's hard. And so that's what dyscalculia looks like. It's They can't do the basics even, but somehow they just keep getting passed on. So a parent's really frustrated by that because the school, they don't know what to do. They just shove a calculator in this kid's hands. So she could do the calculator, but she had no idea what the number meant coming out on the other side.
Yeah. So then is there a definition? And if one of you would start with your definition, and then the other of you can fill in the blanks if you would add anything, but is there a definition that would be useful to share right now?
Yeah, do you want to tackle that? She is my walking encyclopedia of learning. She's amazing. What's your definition?
Talk about the dyscalculia or dyscalculia thing.
Yeah.
Well, see, that for me, I'm like, nah, someone else can have that debate. Okay. For me, it just means that there's no inherent meaning in the symbol. So you have, just like and I take that definition from being dyslexic, and I don't have inherent meaning in letters. Like, it just doesn't mean anything to me. People will show me something, and if I'm not like focused and want to read it, literally it's just jumble on a screen.
The brain is not seeing the symbol of numbers, but are you also talking about symbols like the division sign, the multiplication sign, and any math symbol?
And when you say division sign, for most people, it's probably like, okay, well, we have a quantity and we're going to separate it into different things. That's why we divide. Well, for someone with dyscalculia, there's no inherent meaning to that. So if they haven't physically seen what's going on or like tangibly done that, it's just a little line with two dots. It could be a percentage sign. It could be a division sign. It could just be someone doodling. You know, there's just no inherent meaning behind it, which can be really frustrating for a teacher, because for everyone else, you say, this is division. You do this, you divide it into these many groups, you're done. But for this kiddo, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had students before where they have to specifically ask, is that a 6 or is that a 9? Because in their mind, it's not holding still. And so it's frustrating. Or the division sign, plus and multiply all look alike because the dots are close enough that that could be a plus. So then they're like, I'm not really sure what I'm seeing here. So I think a really good analogy for that is in reading. When I'm reading, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. I see the word pencil and I can envision, oh, that's a pencil. Tyrannosaurus Rex, that's, I got a dinosaur with little arms. But if I say the word the, is there an image that comes to the mind for the? No. So it's kind of similar on the math side. They see a quantity, they have no image for what that is. And so that's where the multisensory comes in. We're building images.
It helps to make those brain connections to make that make more sense.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Now let's move on a little bit to teachers. We have teachers watching. You have a teacher and they're in the classroom. They're trying to teach these kids. They've maybe never even heard of it, or they don't know much about it. And they've been trying these approaches that they've been taught in terms of how to work with kids. And they're not seeing the progress. And so often one of the things that I talk about so much is the shame. And I'm not saying that, I'd like to think all the teachers that watch it don't unintentionally shame kids, but sometimes unintentionally we're doing this. These kids are internalizing, I'm bad at math, I just can't do math, whatever. But how does a teacher know, if they haven't been trained in this, how does a teacher know the red flags? And then what types of things do teachers who do know about it, what do they do differently from teachers who don't, so that teachers who want to learn how to serve these kids can have a couple tips for how to approach this? Did that question make sense?
It's a lot.
Big question, but you got a teacher in a class. How do they identify them, and then how do they serve them? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think some of the easiest ways to identify them is when you see a disconnect between the intellect of that student, like they enjoy them, they provide lots of interesting context to, they're usually good at conversation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Like our students are amazing at that, right? But then you're like, there's such a disconnect though. They don't seem to be able to communicate mathematically, and I don't really get what's going on. So there's like a disconnect. You can't see it. These are the kids who are like habitually getting D's and F's on all assessments. And even though they're doing their homework, they're trying. So there's something off there. And that should be a red flag in my opinion. And often I think teachers are like, this kid's lazy, they're, blah, 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 blah.
So
Like,
the
start
mistake that
labeling.
teachers make is thinking that they're not putting in the effort or they're not paying attention.
Exactly. But the truth is they are putting in effort. They're working 3-4 times harder than the regular student to understand, and it's not working because you're presenting it with just equations on the board. There's a big disconnect. So what's the easiest thing you could do is go back into the earlier grades, look for the connections to the skill that you need. So I'm going to use factoring as an example. Factoring is based on area multiplication when you're a little kid. So go back, draw on a board. If we're doing 3 times 13, show them that you can break 13 into a 10 and a 3, and then we're going to multiply. And talk to them about factoring is finding what the side lengths are of this area and build that bridge for them, because they might not understand that that's what's happening here. And so that's one easy way, is to go back, look at the tying curriculum, standards from the lower grades, build it up to where they are right now. And lots of pictures. If you can do manipulatives, please do. But I realized, like, in high school, you're strapped for time. Right? So a drawing, hey, it's better than nothing, in my opinion. What would you add? Things that they could do?
Yeah, so I love the going back. And you notice how Adrianne immediately made it physical. That's the other thing, like, have toys in your classroom. I mean, I was in a pre-calc class, teaching a honors pre-calculus class, and we were doing a maximization where, okay, you have a pizza box and you have to maximize how much cardboard you can and volume. And so I told the kid, so, like, when you open a pizza box, like, what do you see? Like, what are the different parts that make up a pizza box? And he was like, and I was like, oh, like, you've never seen a pizza box. Okay, let's get a pizza box. And all of a sudden, like, that physical representation had meaning, and he could touch it, he could play with it. And then that's great for geometry. Like, and just then there's so many applications later in calc that if you understand how those pieces fit together, it's going to make calculus easier. So for me, it might seem like a time suck, but it's going to be engaging. You're going to get the whole class engaged. Who doesn't want to play with pizza box, especially if there's pizza in it?
Yeah, right.
Like, little things like that. And then all of a sudden you can engage the whole classroom who, maybe some of those kids didn't really need that in depth, but they're still going to have fun. So they're going to want to learn, even if they're not needing that, like, okay, let's bring up the content level from the background.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would agree too. Like, even the kids who are really advanced, I find that they struggle with understanding where it came from. They're good at memorization and procedure. So even if you spend the time to go back to the concrete of how this works, they're going to learn a lot as well and deepen their own understanding of math.
Okay.
And Seth, we can just wrap it up too. Like.
Okay. Sorry, audience.
Edit this out.
I just got interrupted and then paused it, and we're back. Okay, we're going to wrap this up in like two minutes. Okay, so we discussed some of the things teachers can do, and I guess what should, if parents are okay, so I want to make real clear for my audience that, your kids in the class, it doesn't matter if they're in 4th grade or 12th grade or what, they can have dyscalculia. So whatever percentage there is, and 3rd grade, you're going to have the same percentage as older kids. Oftentimes, the older kids will not be identified, and they will be way further down the line in terms of they have either compensated for it or turned off math so much. They're working way longer than they need to be, whatever. But you have a parent, they're listening, they're like, oh, this is kind of bad. What can they do? Should they go get a tutor? Should they go get any old tutor? Should they go get a tutoring program or a private tutor? Should they check out your thing on April 4th? You're having the webinar on it. Should they research it? Should they not take more math class? Should they push their kid into an easier class? Class, like what kinds of thoughts should parents be having?
Yes, so I would say one thing I'm going to caution you against is any regular old tutoring isn't going to work. So, like, the big box tutoring people out there, the franchises or whatever, that's going to be a waste of money because it's more the same. It's exactly what they're experiencing at school, and obviously that's the definition of insanity, right? We're doing more of the same, expecting different results. It's not going to work.
What I talk about a lot about with cookie cutter interventions that don't work.
Yeah, right. So you're going to want to look for a tutor therapist that has background in this. So, like, Cara's an educational therapist. She has training in making math real. I have training in multisensory math through Marilyn Zecker. The methods are similar, but there's a little bit of differences. But overall, we both get results for our kids.
But call the tutor on the phone and say, do you understand dyscalculia and where are you coming
yes,
from?
Yes, exactly.
And why do you teach differently? Because someone could say, yeah, and like I've worked with a kid with dyscalculia, but why, like, do they understand the neural differences? Yeah, because that's going to tell you a lot, because they might be doing the same thing they're doing in school, and it's just going to.
So don't just take it at face value.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, be a little skeptical of that. Look for that. Another method you could look around for is someone that has wood in math. That's another phrase for a guy who's doing multisensory. But
we'll put this in the show notes, by the way.
Absolutely. And you don't even have to choose to work with us, but if you want some help being pointed in the right direction, make sure you come to our webinar. We would love to help you. Send us an email. We know people, we're connected. We can help you figure that out. So definitely don't settle for just more of the same. That is our biggest advice there.
And then what advice do you have for them? And this is something we could spend a whole session on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But when they are trying to advocate with the school, and I hear this a lot, and the school doesn't get it, or isn't really, they may make some lip service, but they're not, nothing is changing there. So what should they say to the school?
Ooh,
right, we could do a whole nother one on that.
We really could. You know, try to really work with the school. There's been a few crazy situations Cara and I have been able to work out because we are who we are, right? So sometimes we're able to work it out. Cara's working with someone right now where she is the lead teacher. She's teaching this student Algebra 2. I've done that before as well, where I'm teaching this 7th grader all the 7th grade math, and the school was on board. They wanted to help. They realized that they lacked the resources, right? So it's difficult to get there, but it's worth the effort. It takes a lot of back and forth, but you can advocate for that. You can ask for a period where they could go online and meet with us, or maybe send a teacher through some training or something like that and get your kid the help they need. You'd be surprised. Schools are more willing than you think. You just have to go in there with an open mind and not being threatened or highly emotional. Like, you gotta be calm about it.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll be receptive, and hopefully they can go in there armed with some knowledge, hopefully from this right now, or from your webinar, or from some research on it. So
yeah, absolutely.
We have to wrap up today. Any final thoughts?
No, I just hope you can come join us. We just skimmed the surface. There's so much more we can share. So come to our webinar in April. I'll make sure Seth has the correct link
here.
Yeah, and we'll go a little deeper for you and really help you get a vision of what's really needed to turn the ship around.
All right.
Just because someone's working hard. Oh, sorry, we really do have to wrap up, so I'll let you go.
This is Cara Scanlon and Adrianne Meldrum, and you can find both of them online. And again, my name is Seth Perler. I'm an executive function coach in Boulder, Colorado, and we will see you soon. Thank you guys so much.
See ya.
Bye.